Hey, what's going on, guys? So my name is Ipe. I've been making money on the internet since 2014, and I make seven figures online. And I do it with SEO and lead generation skills. And over the years, I've sold high ticket coaching programs. I've obviously had to sell to small business owners and sell my lead generation services. So I have good sales experience. And today I'm going to react to Jordan Belfort's video, how to handle any objection.
I'm Jordan Belfort, and this is Sales School. All right, so if you're a business owner, do not let QuickBooks and spreadsheets slow you down anymore. Now is time to upgrade to NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud-based business system. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control over your financials, inventory, and more. Schedule your free product tour. Is that in terms of how you got a great topic today, sales training, has to do with looping here, specific aspect of it, in terms of how you totally handle different objections. In other words, one of the things that I teach with looping, it's pretty obvious, right, to get to the broader levels, is that when someone hits you with a common objection, right, and then you run your initial loop, right, you'll say, does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? And they'll say, yeah, it sounds pretty good. To which you say, exactly. You enter someone's world where they are. They say, yeah, it sounds great. You say, exactly. So in other words, you enter someone's world where they are, right? But let me give you a different take on this, right? So I know every sales is the same. You have all the common objections, 12, 14, whichever one you choose based on the industry. And you want to count doubles with, bad time of year and Groundhog's Day, leap year, tax time, Christmas. You get it? Right? But there's, a handful of objections, right? And no matter which objection you get hit with, your standard straight line response is very basic. I hear what you're saying, but let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? Right? Now notice, this is important. This is the distinction. So I say, I hear what you're saying. Not, oh, John, I totally hear what you're saying. But does the idea make sense to you? See, I don't, if I say, oh, I totally understand what you're saying, but does the, I give away control, I lose power. It's like, oh my God, I understand. But so you don't do that. What you want to do is say, I hear what you're saying, so you don't break rapport. So I hear what you're saying, fair enough, reasonable, but let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea, right? Now, you probably heard me say that, or I've taught that too many times, right? One thing I might not have gone through, though, with you, because this is in the advanced training course I'm working on now, is that there is one objection that you actually handle differently. You still say the same words, pretty much, but you handle the tonality with a different twist, right? So if someone says to me, let me go back. You know what my favorite objection is, honestly? Or the one I respect the most? I'm not liquid right now. Because at least there's a chance it might be real. Or I want to think, what the fuck do I want to think about me? I want to call you blah, 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 right? It's a pure smokescreen for uncertainty, right? But when someone says I'm not liquid right now, there actually might be some credence to the fact that, maybe they, thought they'd get a full and they didn't understand the full pricing. The point is, it might be real, right? So I handle it differently.
You have to understand, most people don't want to talk about money. They don't want to talk about the fact that they can't afford your product, so they want to use other objections to run away from that fact, because, to tell somebody that they can't afford it is kind of embarrassing for people. So this is why they'll bring up the wife objection. I need to talk to my business partner. Now is not the right time. All these different objections. I need time to think about it. All these objections are a lot of times, smoke screen for the fact that they have a money issue. So this is, your job as a salesperson to get to the bottom of that. And, whenever somebody gives you, hey, I need more time to think about it, or do I need to make a decision today? Hey, you always want to be agreeable, right? So, hey, I understand, but does the idea make sense to you? Does the business model make sense to you? Like, do you like the idea? This is just like an easy go-to phrase so that you sound professional and you don't ever sound like you were stumped or surprised by their objection. And oftentimes, and then they'll go, yeah, I totally like the idea or like the product. I'm fully on board. And so whatever that objection is, you can also do a hypothetical. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, let's assume that you were able to talk to your business partner or your wife and she's fully on board as well. Are you ready to move forward today? Is this something that you are financially capable of moving forward? You always want to kind of like rebuttal their objection and double ask if they can even afford your product.
So watch how I handle, let me think about it. So this all sounds good, Jordan, let me think about it. I say, I hear what you're saying, Bill, but let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? They say, I want to think about it. I say, I hear what you're saying, we're in rapport, but let me ask you a question. Hypothetical tone. But if they say I'm not liquid right now, I change my tonality, and I also I say, I understand what you're saying, Bill, So I actually give that credence. I actually, notice if you just say, "Oh, I hear what you're saying," but this make, notice, I want him to understand it. I get it. It might not be liquid right now, and I've been there too. So that I can understand. It goes back almost to the same way you handle when someone says, "Yeah, I don't trust you, Jordan." That's why I'm not. I said, "Well, that I can understand. You don't know me. I don't have a track record." Right? And in that case, which would be the second part of our first lesson, but let me take a moment to reintroduce. I actually will show them how they can trust me. Well, the same thing goes with this objection, because when I say they might actually not be liquid, don't think for a second that if they say I'm not liquid, I'm like, oh, okay, well then I'm not, all right, I'm sorry I wasted your time. I'll never do that. Notice what I'm saying is, in order to make sure I stay in tight rapport and they know that I care, I'll shoot them a tonality. I'll tell them, I say, I understand you're not liquid right now. Like, I understand you're not liquid right now. I get that. We all go through those. See the difference versus I hear what you're saying versus, oh, I totally understand that, John. But let me ask you a question. I go back then to the idea. So either way, I end up going forward. But the point is that when it comes to money, I don't want to be so I hear what you're saying. I actually give them some, okay, I totally understand that, John, but let me ask you a question. Now, here's the deal. Once they hit me with that, by no means does that mean I lose my state of certainty. All I'm going to do now is, well, fair enough. Let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like it? You know why? Because now I'm going to show them how they can actually afford it. Either through a financing option, a payment plan, or I might even go through a step-down sale. Step-down sale, right? Where essentially I start slowly but surely reducing the size of the order I ask for as I ask for the order each time. So if it's 4 times I ask for the order, I might ask for 20,000 of X the first order, 10,000 the second time, 5,000, and then down to 1,000 the last time. It's 1,000 the minimum I'll take, right? In other words, just because they say they're not liquid, by no means does that mean I give up. All I'm saying is that totally, I want them to understand that I care. Because, listen, I understand you're not liquid, and I totally understand you don't know me and don't trust me, but what I don't understand is, let me fucking think about it. That's a nonsense. So the way I handle it totally is different. And it has a very big impact on what happens, in the mind of the prospect. Because when you say something, I understand that. You're like, oh, okay, he cares. He's not just there to make a sale. But let me ask you a question. Does the idea, does the program make sense to you? Do you like it? Do you like what I have, right? And now they'll be like, well, yeah, it sounds pretty good. And I'll say, exactly, it really isn't great now. In fact, let me say this, and now just so you know, I'm still going to loop back, create massive certainty, focus a bit more on some of the cost-benefit ratios, and if there's a financing option, I'll certainly start revealing that right now, and then go to my step down.
One thing to know is before you get into the final closing aspect of a sales call, before you tell them the price even, you want to get a verbal agreement that they understand your product and service and they are interested, and there's no doubt or question that they know that their product can solve their problem. So let's just say your prospect goes, hey, but like, how much does this cost? And you might want to deflect that for a second and say, hey, John, before we go over the price, I just want to make sure, like, we have a few different packages. I want to make sure that we get the right package for you and for your business. And based on what we've discussed on the call, like, you have this problem. Is that correct, John? Yes, that's correct. Is there anything else that I need to know or I need to know about when it comes to your business and the reason why we're on the phone today? And no, Ipe, like that's pretty much it. Then you understand their problem. Then you go, hey John, let me ask you this. Based on everything that we've discussed today and the solutions that my vision and the solution that I have for you, does everything what I've stated here make sense to you? Before we get into the packages and the price, I just want to make sure, like, does everything make sense? Or is there any part of what I offered you or any part of my service are you concerned about? Are you worried about? So what's happening there is you want to get all the doubts onto the table first before you mention the price. Because when you mention the price, that's when, imagine there's an angel on their left shoulder and then a demon on their right shoulder, right? The demon is like all their fears and their doubts. Now, when you hit them with the price, that doubt on the right hand of the shoulder is going to grow and grow and grow unless you manage that doubt beforehand. So by getting all the concerns and the doubts onto the table and you addressing them before you get into the price, you are minimizing that demon that's going to be telling them negative self-talk on the right hand of the shoulder, which is like, hey, this is too expensive. Now is not the right time. How can you trust this guy? Maybe this guy's a scam. Like, all these little, like, self-limiting beliefs that people have before they purchase, that's going to grow if you don't address that first and foremost, So it's like, and then, you address, hey, maybe I don't understand this SEO side of it. How long does it take? He might have more further questions for you that you might need to address before you get into the price. And let's just say you go through all the little last minute questions that this person has and you address it properly. You might even go one step further and get another verbal agreement, which is, hey, other than price, if we can make price, and we're known to be flexible, John, with pricing and all of that, but other than price, is there any other reason why you wouldn't move forward with me today? So what that does is you are getting a final verbal commitment that, hey, I am sold on your vision, your product, your service. I am ready to move forward. Like, I like what you guys have. The only remaining thing is the price, if I can afford it or not. You want to get to that point where the prospect is completely sold and saying yes to what you have to offer, a verbal agreement, before you even tell them the price. Because without them saying, hey, I am sold on you and your product, then even if you give them the price, they can come up with all kinds of excuses like, hey, actually, I don't know if this is the right time. I don't know. I need to speak to my wife. I need some time to think about it. They can give you all these objections if you don't get that verbal agreement first. Now, if you get that verbal agreement first, you have a lot more leeway, a lot more leverage at the end to say, hey, John, I told, let's just say they get the verbal agreement. You tell them the price, and they still say, hey, I think I need time to think about it. Hey, John, I totally understand. You always want to be agreeable, right? Like what Jordan's showing. It's called creating a loop. But you just told me that instead of Jordan's version, which is, hey, does my idea make sense to you? You already got that verbal commitment. Like, they already told you like 5 minutes ago the idea makes sense. So you can be like, hey, John, like, I totally understand. But 9 times out of 10, when we get to this point of the call, 5 minutes ago, you were told me you were fully on board. And 9 times out of 10, if the prospect, if the client, still has to need time to think about it, 9 times out of 10, it's like some sort of financial situation that we might have to work out. Is that the case here? Right. So now I am asking questions directly to the finances, trying to figure out if it's a money issue, right? Because if they are truly sold on your service and your solution, why would they not purchase, right? Because your solution should be able to help them make so much more money. And then they go, yeah, it's more expensive than I expected, Then you can loop a few times. At least they're getting more honest with why they're telling you why they need to think about it. Hey, John, like, based on what we discussed, I understand that up front it might seem like a lot of money, but based on what you told me, and you have an issue with this, you want to bring up the pain points, right? Like, you have an issue with generating more customers. You have issues with hiring helpful staff because you don't have enough leads or customers. If I can get you at least 5 more leads every month, that's going to equate to $10,000 per month in new revenue, correct? Yeah, that's correct, Ipe. Okay, so I'm only asking you the first 3 months of $1,000, $2,000 to get started per month. If I just get you 5 clients every month, that would have paid for itself, right? So you start making a logical case as to why you're not that expensive, because your solution right away is going to offset that initial investment. So you want to start making some logical case there as to why you're really, in the grand scheme of things, not that expensive, because your solution is going to bring so much more money to them. And then, you got to help them do the math in their head. Like, they're going to start to understand logically why your price is the way it's priced. And you'll get more, but then you might need further pushing, and you might need to loop a few more times. You might need to go into stories of how you were able to do XYZ for another company, and what that company is doing today. And you just kind of keep, I don't want to use the word wearing them out, but you essentially are looping all these kind of different stories as to explain why, like, you are able to solve all these pain points for them. And when you handle these objections in like an expert, like, what you're talking about, you're not getting stumped, you're not stuttering, like, you've practiced, you've done these lines, and you're able to smoothly walk them through it. It's not really all about everything that you're saying, but it's how you're saying it. They're getting impressed more and more of how professionally you're handling their objections, and then they become more and more sold on you, right? And so you eventually, will start to get, like you'll start to get more like they're actively listening to what you're saying, and they're getting more and more convinced like you are that guy, because you're handling all their objections, their doubts in a very, very professional manner. And, towards the end, you can create, once you loop a few times, you can create even more reasons for them to act today, like some urgency, right? So which is like, hey, John, I'll tell you what. I know that, we've been on the phone for like 30 minutes. Based on what I'm hearing so far, you have this problem, and that I'm your guy. Like there is no doubt, like you've been able to see my case studies, like, that I can produce the results for you. And I know that, I'm a business owner myself. So I understand like taking a risk of somebody that you just met. The worst case scenario, if I don't produce any leads for you for the next 3 months, you're going to be out this amount of money, right? So at most you're risking, $2,000 a month for the first 3 months. So $6,000, right? So I'm like literally like spelling out like the worst case scenario. If I don't produce any results, what's going to be their cost? And I understand as a business owner, and I'm making myself relatable and telling them that I'm a business owner, that, 6,000 is your risk, and you're still hesitant on that risk. However, what if we do this? What if you meet me in the middle, and I'm able to do, the first month for $1,000, right? If we can get started today. And so you can give like the final like discount, fast action discount to get started today. Obviously figure out what that number is, but once you do a good enough job of looping a few times, they know that you're the expert. You can give that final some sort of urgency. Maybe it's another bonus, like, hey, I'll tell you what, like if we can get started today, I will add this bonus for you, or that bonus. Like I will add another private one-on-one coaching session, or some sort of a bonus as well to move forward, because that works well towards the end when the rapport is built. It's like, you know what? Like I like this kid. He's very, very, he's a go-getter. Like he knows what he's talking about. He's handling my objections really well. I know that he has a track record. Like this guy really seems like he knows what he's doing. Like he can help my business, and he's now offering me a lot of bonuses. You know what? Let's go. Let's do it. Right. So it's like that final like pressure that you can add on to the plate, where it's going to be a lot of time. That's going to be the tipping point for them to go, you know what? Let's go, right? Because when you're talking to a lot of business, like A-player business owners, like they know the value of taking fast action as well.
You get it? But that's the distinction. Remember, tonality is so powerful.
But yeah, Jordan just said it. Like all of that is handling it with the tonality of being certain, right? And it takes practice, but once you get good at this, it's like this is how you overcome objections. It's like a lot of the objections are shit tests. They basically want to see if you're gonna crumble, if you're gonna start like stuttering your words, you're gonna start to get frustrated or nervous. But if you can handle it without showing any of those signs, by just simply looping, man, you're gonna do so much of the heavy lifting of persuasion right there. Persuasion's all about not taking their no for certain, and just continually holding that certainty frame. And then eventually, energetically, your prospect falls into your frame because you are more certain than the prospect. That's really what persuasion is.
There's a big difference between saying, I hear what you're saying, versus, I totally understand what you're saying, John. But let me ask you a question. Versus, I hear what you're saying, Billy. I end up in the same spot, but in each instance, I telegraph certain things. In the first instance, where they say, I want to think about it, what I basically say is, I hear what you're saying, we're in a report, but I know you're full of shit. You get it? Like, I hear what you're saying, John, but you're kind of full of shit. Versus, I totally understand that. But let me ask you a question. Try that today and every day going forward, and watch the difference it makes. It has a massive impact on the mindset of your prospect. Love you all. We'll talk again tomorrow. All right, everyone's talking about CBD these days, but there's really only one brand you need to know about, and that is Lord Jones.
All right, so this seems to be an ad, but yeah, hope you guys like the video. Remember, like, handling objection is half about what you say, but the other half is how you are able to maintain frame of certainty. And in order to not get stumped and have that frame of certainty, you want to actually have objection handling lines prepared and you're not going to get it perfect your first few times as sales, but you just have to kind of, this is why I like Jordan Belfort's like looping concept, because no matter what they say, you can always just fall back on, hey, I hear what you're saying, but let me ask you this. Does the idea make sense to you? Does the business make sense to you? You can always use that line. If you haven't got the verbal agreement first, you can always fall back to that line and they go, yeah, the idea makes sense. You know, but like, I just feel like I need to still think about it. Right. And then you can go, well, let me ask you a question. Right. If you were able to talk to my past 3 clients and you were to get a reference, would that help you change your mind? Right. So I'm like, what I'm doing is I'm like trying to pick the lock, and I'm trying to figure out what it is that's holding them back. Right. Because there's some doubt there that's holding them back. And as a salesperson, like, I can't read their mind. You can do your best to ask a lot of qualifying questions before you get to the last ending call. That's why you want to get that verbal agreement first. But they might still have doubts that they didn't tell you about. And you can't read their mind, so you have to kind of keep picking the lock until you get to the bottom of what's holding them back. And so a lot of times it's like uncertainty. They don't fully trust that you are who you say you are. They don't trust your company. There's some doubt of how long it's going to take or how expensive it is. Like, those are going to be your main ones that's going to prevent somebody. So you basically start like guessing, hey, is this what it is? Is this what it is? If I got you more references from a previous clients, would that help you make a decision today? Or, you know, is it the money? Like, I get it. The risk is like $6,000 up front. If I gave you, you know, to move forward with me today, like, obviously you don't want to drop your price down immediately, but hey, you want to make the logical case that why it's like actually very, very affordable, your price, based on the results that you can bring. But even then, even if they're not budging with that logical case, then you can, you know, try to drop, like, if you move forward with me today, John, you know, I'm willing to give you a big discount on the initial investment and do this price if you are willing to move forward with me today. Will that make a difference? Right? So you don't want to just get off the call when they tell you, hey, I need to think about it. You really want to, like, if you did a good enough job displaying your expertise and like you're a guy that knows what he's talking about, they don't want to just blow you off either, because they feel like you're the expert. So when you kind of push back on, hey, let me think about it. Hey, what could it be? You just told me that, you know, you believe in our product and our service. You know, I find that a lot of business owners, they have trouble trusting lead generator people like myself, because they've invested in other things that didn't work in the past, like Yelp or Home Advisor. Is that still holding you back, or is there any doubt about the lead generation? Is it something about our service that's you're in doubt? Like, you want to keep asking these questions until they start telling you more reasons why they're uncertain, right? Because if people have 100% certainty that your product is going to solve all their problems, they would invest with you right on the spot. So there's something there that you need to address. And sometimes they, you know, like you have to gauge it too. Like, you can't just keep pushing. Sometimes they do need a day to think about it. They need to talk to their business partner. In that case, it's like, hey, I totally understand. You know, you want to set the next call, you know, hey, so when are you free tomorrow to get on the phone? And you want to make that second call as soon as possible. But again, objection handling is very important. Expect objections to come your way. People will. I've even been on the sales calls myself where I was pretty much sold, like, to move forward with that call, or whether that be a software that I was investing for my own company or whatnot. And I'm on these Zoom calls, like, I'm pretty much sold. Like, I'm ready to, like, purchase, but it'd be kind of nice to kind of have, like, one more day to think about it, kind of thing. So I will give them an objection, like, hey, can I have a day to think about it? Or, you know, it's just kind of like it's an automatic response sometimes when you have a salesperson on the other line, And sometimes I've said it myself, those kind of lines, even though I'm already kind of able to move forward. And it's like, if you get that salesperson that's really good, that kind of like pushes back on that, hey, it's almost like you have the frame like, hey, I thought you're a high performer entrepreneur, and high performing entrepreneurs like make decisions quickly. So what's really the problem? Like, you told me like you're sold, like you kind of almost have to have that kind of attitude of like calling them out on their bullshit, right? Because it's like it feels good to take action, and be a top performer. So it's like, hey, like what's the problem? I thought me and you were on the same page. I thought we were both A players, like ready to go make, like, this is small child's play stuff that we're first gonna get started on. Like, once I prove myself with this first project, we're gonna go on to do much bigger things. So I thought that's what we're on the same page for, not quabble with this first project. So I thought, where's the disconnect, right? So you kind of frame yourself as like this high performance digital marketer, where why are we even questioning this first thing? Like, why are we even having any doubts now? Like, we're supposed to be doing much bigger things in 1 to 2 years. So why are we even like pondering about initial $5,000 investment? Like, that should be your attitude, because the energy and the solution you bring forth is such big vision that you almost make the business owner, the prospect, sound stupid for like telling you a bullshit excuse like, I need to think about it because it's $3,000, right? So just keep that in mind. It's all about that attitude, that energy that you bring forth. And that comes with positioning as well, and how you sound, your tonality, how you sound on the sales calls, and how much of an expert you make yourself appear. Also, just on a quick note, when you have more positioning, you have more leverage, you have more persuasion power. So this is why, again, this is another topic, but it's important to continue to work on your personal branding and positioning, whether that be working on your social media, whatnot, to make yourself like the high-end guy, high-end service kind of guy, whether that be having pictures, whether that be whatever it is, okay, having video content about yourself. When you have that, then it's like you'll get a lot less friction, a lot less bullshit excuses at the end. But you won't have that as a beginner, but that's something to keep in mind as well.